Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
What's up, everybody, and welcome in to the Philly Sports Power Hour with Bill Colarulo on this disgusting day to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan. One of the most embarrassing performances that I can remember in a really long time from this Philadelphia Eagles team. And we'll get into it all. Philadelphia Eagles get dominated by the New York Giants. We'll take a look around the NFL because the playoffs are here. Not that we have a lot of hope as Philadelphia Eagles fans, but we'll talk about the playoffs. Playoffs! So good to see my Power Hour crew in the house today. Wish it was under better circumstances, guys, because that was just an absolute embarrassment. And I see some people checking in. Good morning, Power Hour crew. We are live here on the JAKIB Sports Network on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. What's up to the Power Hour crew on TikTok as well? Let's get a little roll call before I sound off on this Philadelphia Eagles team and coaching staff. Let me see who I'm talking to. We got James Osborne in the house. Wine Niners Wine. Ringo Island. Billy Ray. Steve Rufo, Chwiz. I see Medina, Daniel H., Antonio Rodriguez, Flybirds 97, Kevin Savard. Kevin Savard checking in from frozen northern New Hampshire. Man, it probably is cold up there. Fat Falk in the house. Love spending some time with my Power Hour crew, but I'll tell you what, guys. This is so much more fun, not only for you, but for me, when I get to come on here after a win and we get to talk about how good this Eagles team is. It's been a while. Feels like an eternity since we were coming on here talking about how good this Eagles team was. But I see more people checking in. Adams Exploits, good morning. Mr. Rudy Poo, Jason A-Team. WC Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 77 in the house. The Real RMP in the house. Bleed Green. Crawley. Happy birthday, Crawley. Don't let the Eagles bring you down, my man. Happy birthday to you. Shooter McGavin. Shooter in the house. But let's talk about this Eagles team. Let's talk about what we witnessed yesterday against a New York Giants team that had absolutely nothing to play for. Nothing to play for. And the Philadelphia Eagles went into that game with everything to play for. When they were getting dominated in that first half, the Dallas Cowboys were losing. So the NFC East championship and home field advantage was right in front of this Eagles team. Granted, at the end, it wouldn't have mattered. But when the starters, when your Philadelphia Eagles starters were getting absolutely dominated by a bad New York Giants team, the Cowboys were losing to the Commanders. Nick Sirianni told his team on Saturday night that we're going to win this football game. They went into that game trying to win. And they get destroyed in the first half. Things were so bad in the first half that Nick Sirianni actually had to wave the white flag and pull the starters out of the game for all the wrong reasons. Not because the Cowboys were winning big, not because the Eagles were winning big, because things were only going to get worse and worse against a Giants team that completely embarrassed you in week 18 of the regular season. I wanted to see the Philadelphia Eagles starters play in that football game. We talked about it last week on the Power Hour, that I felt it was necessary for these starters to play to try to get the mojo right headed into the playoffs. Man, was I wrong. Get the mojo right. Are you kidding me? This team stinks. This Philadelphia Eagles team has been trying to tell us they were not a good team all season. And things have finally fallen apart the last few weeks. They were finding ways to win in the beginning of the year, but our eyes were telling us something was off. We were watching this team stumble to victories, and we kept thinking to ourselves, well, they keep finding ways to win. They're a good football team. They find ways to win. But we knew in the back of our minds something was off with this team. And then against the San Francisco 49ers, after they get absolutely dominated by the 49ers, they've never been able to recover. And what I'm starting to realize, which is the worst thing for me, is I'm starting to realize that this team that I thought had such a strong culture, that had such an uncanny ability to battle adversity, was nothing but a bunch of front runners. There is a severe lack of leadership and culture on this football team, something that I touted Nick Sirianni for building. And man, was I wrong. I thought Sirianni had built a strong culture. I thought the leadership group on this team was so strong that not only could they battle adversity, but that they would be strong enough to overcome the Super Bowl hangover that so many teams have fallen victim to. But what we're seeing in front of us is a team that can't battle adversity. A team that is full of a bunch of front runners that the moment adversity creeped its head, they all cowered. The San Francisco 49ers dominated you, and you've never been able to recover from it. And that starts at the top. I'm not absolving the players for their performance on the field. But this lack of an ability to overcome any adversity starts with Nick Sirianni. And it trickles all the way through that entire locker room. And you look at the decisions that have been made, whether it was Nick Sirianni or Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, but you look at the decision now to change defensive coordinators after that Dallas Cowboys game. And a lot of people said it seemed like desperation, and it turned out to be a disastrous decision. You took a chance, and that chance has not worked. If anything, you took a locker room that probably already had some cracks in the foundation, and you make a move like that in the middle of the season, not even the middle, towards the end of the season, and I think you've lost your locker room. I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. When they made the change from Desai to Patricia, they completely lost that locker room. It already had cracks. There were already issues in the foundation. But once they did that, and now you look back to Hassan Reddick's press conference last week, and you listen to some of the things he said, and man, we were all enamored and blinded by the A.J. Brown press conference at his locker that we didn't talk enough about some of the things that Hassan Reddick said. And he talked about when asked how difficult it was to switch from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia that late in the season. And there's something he said that is really telling now. He talked about the higher ups wanted to make the move. The higher-ups wanted to make the move. Not head coach Nick Sirianni, the higher-ups. So who was it that wanted to make that move? And if you have Hassan Reddick saying that, the whole locker room knows what's going on. And this team has checked out on their coach. They've checked out on the higher-ups. And you have, unfortunately, a bunch of front runners who can't handle adversity. And that was something I used to think this team could do so well. We used to talk about it all the time. How strong the culture was, how strong the leadership was. But now that you look back, what adversity has this team faced in 3 seasons until this year? You go back to Nick Sirianni's first year. Yeah, they stumbled out of the gate, but there were 0 expectations. It was Jalen Hurts' first year as a starter. It was Nick Sirianni's first year as a coach. There was some adversity of people questioning the hire of Nick Sirianni, but there were no expectations, and they outperformed the expectations that year. And then they come in last year. They dominated pretty much every single game. Yes, it was an easier schedule for sure. They win a lot of games. There's no adversity. The only adversity they faced last year, Jalen Hurts goes down for a couple of games. Then they go into the playoffs, and they had one of the easiest roads we've ever seen. Not taking anything away from them. They dominated those games, but they played a bad Giants team. Then they knocked out Brock Purdy. They knocked him out. I'm not giving the Whiners fans reason to whine again. The Eagles knocked him out of that game, but it was an easy road the way they dominated. They never faced adversity last season. And they come in this year for the first time, and they start to face some adversity. They get dominated by the San Francisco 49ers. They get dominated by the Dallas Cowboys. And now the panic button gets hit. They make a change at defensive coordinator. When I have been saying for weeks now that the problem with that defense wasn't Sean Desai. The problem with that defense isn't Matt Patricia. The problem with that defense is the roster that Howie Roseman went into this season with. As good as Howie Roseman is, and I give him a lot of credit when he does things well, he dropped the ball on that defense this season by ignoring key positions, by trying to fill the defense with players nobody else wanted. We've talked about it at length last week. Bringing in guys like Zach Cunningham and Nick Morrow and Miles Jack and Kevin Byard and Bradley Roby, Shaq Leonard. Bringing in guys that other people didn't want, that were still available for a reason, that were cut in the middle of a season for a reason, that were traded away from teams for a reason, because you've ignored key positions. That defense and its struggles, in my opinion, fall squarely on the shoulders of Howie Roseman. But when you look at the offensive side of the football, I said I will give Howie Roseman credit when he deserves it. And you look at the offensive side of the football, Howie Roseman built a great offensive roster. The defense stinks, and that's on Howie Roseman. But the offensive roster, if you put them on paper against any offense in the NFL, it's one of the best offenses in the NFL on paper. The problem is, you have guys like Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson who are clueless. I cannot believe that I am sitting up here. I am one of the biggest, or was, I should say, in past tense, one of the biggest Nick Sirianni fans going. If you guys follow this show, you know in the offseason, leading into this year, we were talking about the NFC. And the best coach in the NFC, in my opinion, was Nick Sirianni. Man, was I wrong. I cannot believe what we are seeing from this offense under Nick Sirianni's leadership. Sirianni has told us time and time again, this is his offense. So if we're going to be frustrated, we should be frustrated with him, not Brian Johnson. Well, let's just look at yesterday's game. Every single person who knows anything about football knew that the New York Giants were going to blitz the hell out of Jalen Hurts. Wink Martindale and the New York Giants are the number 2 blitzing defense in the entire NFL. They blitz 45% of the time. The only team that blitzes more than them is the Minnesota Vikings. And you go back to week 16, Philadelphia Eagles. We just played the Giants 2 weeks ago. And Wink Martindale blitzed Jalen Hurts in week 16 83% of the time. And you went into this game, everybody knew Wink Martindale was going to blitz the hell out of you. And this offense had 0 answers for the blitz. 0. And I know there's a lot of people who want to blame Jalen Hurts. I see it in the chat talking about Jalen Hurts. Listen, Jalen Hurts needs to play better. There's no doubt about it. But yesterday, what you saw from the offense, I'm not blaming Jalen Hurts. Go back and watch that game, and you tell me what the hell Jalen Hurts was supposed to do when you have 0 answers for the blitz that Wink Martindale and the New York Giants are bringing. Their protection schemes were terrible. The route concepts against the blitz were terrible. All you have to do is blitz Jalen Hurts because the Eagles' offense does not build in any hot routes whatsoever for Jalen Hurts to get rid of that football. Go back and watch the tape. And you tell me where Jalen Hurts was supposed to go with the football when he's being blitzed. Not that Jalen Hurts played well. Trust me. Hurts needs to play better. But I put what you saw yesterday on this offensive coaching staff. They had 0 answers for what we all knew was coming. We all knew Wink Martindale and the Giants were going to blitz. How you could not have answers for that built into your pass protection, built into your play calling. I said it a couple minutes ago. In past tense, I used to be one of the biggest Nick Sirianni fans out there. But what I've seen over the last few weeks, and especially what I saw yesterday from our offense, makes me seriously question Nick Sirianni and his ability to coach this football team. That was an absolute embarrassment, what you saw from your offense yesterday. You look at the first half against a New York Giants defense that hasn't been very good this season at all. And you talk about the New York Giants offense hasn't been good. We'll get there. But you look at this New York Giants defense that hasn't been good, and the Philadelphia Eagles with their starters trying to win this football game had 5 first downs in the first half. They had 102 yards of offense in the first half. Jalen Hurts was 7 of 16 for 55 yards and a passer rating of 26.8. And the Philadelphia Eagles turned the ball over 3 more times. Philadelphia Eagles now, on the season, have turned the ball over 28 times. 28 damn turnovers by your Philadelphia Eagles. And then to throw salt in the wound, A.J. Brown gets hurt. Jalen Hurts hurts his finger. Sidney Brown out for the year. It was an absolute embarrassment. And for me, it was a complete indictment of this entire coaching staff and Nick Sirianni. That every single person knew what this defense was going to try to do to you. And you have no answers. And then what they do, this is the stuff that just blows your mind. You have Rashad Penny in the game. Finally, every fan gets what they wanted, which is let's see some Rashad Penny. And it became clear on the first time you asked Rashad Penny to pick up a blitz that he can't pass block. So what you do then is you decide you're going to rush Kenny Gainwell, but you're going to take him off the field in passing downs, and you're going to put Rashad Penny on the field and ask him to pick up the blitz, which he can't do. It was just the personnel decisions, the pass protection, the route designs, the play calling. Embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. And you weren't going up against a good defense yesterday. You weren't going up against a team that was playing their hearts out because they needed to win this game to make the playoffs. You were going up against a team that stinks. The New York Giants have stunk all season long. They had 0 to play for yesterday. And you looked at those teams. One team was 11-5 going in. The other team was 5-11. Could you tell which team was the 11-5 and which team was the 5-11? Because I think the New York Giants are a better team than the Philadelphia Eagles right now, and they proved it yesterday. And the worst part of it all, yeah, the decisions were bad. The play calling was bad. The route designs were bad. The pass protection was bad. The defensive schemes were bad. All of those things were bad. But the worst part of it all for me is it looks like this team has checked out. It's amazing to me. I have never seen a team that is still going to the playoffs look like they have completely checked out on their coaching staff, have completely checked out on the season. They're still in the playoffs, and we'll talk about that later on in the show because I know you guys feel the same way I do. Who cares? They're still in the playoffs. This team is not a good football team. But for them, for guys who have still another game to play, who still have a shot, technically, to look like they have completely checked out, to me, tells you a lot. And I talked about it last week on the show, guys. I said that I thought anyone who was calling for Nick Sirianni's job was overreacting. I said there's no way you fire a coach who's gotten your team to the playoffs 3 years in a row in his first 3 seasons as a coach. First Eagles coach in franchise history to ever do that. And I talked about the Super Bowl hangover and how tough it is to get back to a Super Bowl, and only 6 coaches have ever done it. They're all legends. You guys remember Tom Landry, Don Shula, Dan Reeves, Bud Grant, Marv Levy, Bill Belichick, the only teams who have ever done it. Those are the only 6 coaches who have ever gotten back to a Super Bowl after losing. So I was saying it's an overreaction to say that Nick Sirianni's on the hot seat. After what I saw yesterday against the New York Giants, I no longer think it would be an overreaction to move on from Nick Sirianni. I cannot believe that those words are even coming out of my mouth because I was a Nick Sirianni fan. I did think it would be crazy to move on from a coach who brought your team to the playoffs 3 years in a row and got you to a Super Bowl last season. But after what I just watched yesterday, after the historic collapse that we have seen from this Eagles team after starting the year 10-1, I no longer believe it would be an overreaction. If this team goes to Tampa on Monday night and they perform the way you just saw them perform against the New York Giants and the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks and the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers, if they perform the way that they have performed over the last 6 weeks in that game against the Tampa Bay Bucks, it would not be an overreaction to move on from Nick Sirianni. And I cannot believe that I'm saying that. But that is how bad what we saw yesterday was. And I don't think I can overemphasize how bad yesterday was. That team has checked out. A playoff team has checked out. That's on the coaching staff. And you listen, there's clearly something going on in that locker room. Something is off. Something isn't right. And I want you guys to go back, if you can find it on YouTube, and watch the interview of Hassan Reddick last week. It got overshadowed by A.J. Brown's press conference at his locker. But if you go back and you watch that interview, or you even read some of the things Hassan Reddick had said, to me, it was a real indictment, not only on this coaching staff, but on the entire organization, talking about how the higher-ups wanted to make the change at defensive coordinator. And when we get back, I want to talk about what this defense has done since they made the switch to Matt Patricia, which in hindsight was maybe the worst decision of the year. They won't do it, but if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, as crazy as this may sound, I'm giving the job back to Sean Desai against the Tampa Bay Bucks. At least there were some games in there with Sean Desai, or some halves, I should say, because I don't think they've put together 4 quarters all freaking year. But there were some halves of football where the defense actually looked good at times under Sean Desai. The Tampa Bay Bucks game in week 3. The second half against the Los Angeles Rams. The Miami Dolphins game. Those were Sean Desai's defenses. Not that Sean Desai is Jim Johnson, but at least we saw some halves of football where this defense could actually perform. What you've seen over the last 4 weeks under Matt Patricia is one of the worst defensive performances that I have ever seen in all the years that I've watched Philadelphia Eagles football. And that is not an exaggeration. And we're going to talk about it when we get back, because if you look at the teams that they have played and the defensive performances that they're going up against, terrible. I still cannot believe we're sitting here on a Monday with the playoffs a week away, and this is how we all feel about this Eagles team. Terrible. Well, guys, hit that like button for me. Hit that share button for me. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I want to take a look at this defense over the last few weeks. We'll also look around the NFL, and it's Black Monday. Some axes have already fallen, so we'll talk about it. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back into the Philly Sports Power Hour with Bill Colarulo on this Monday, January 8th. It's playoff week. Everybody all excited? It's playoff week. Cannot believe that we're sitting here getting ready for the playoffs with this feeling in our stomachs about this Eagles team. Just crazy to me, man. Crazy. But we were talking a little bit before the break about this defense since the Philadelphia Eagles made the desperate decision to go from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia. And if you follow this show, you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you know that I have been talking about for weeks that my problem with the defense wasn't Sean Desai. It's not even Matt Patricia. It's the personnel. I think this Eagles defense severely lacks the personnel to compete. We've been saying that for a while now. But at least under Sean Desai, there were times that you saw some hope from that defense. They had games where they played well, or halves where they played well. But then Sean Desai gets completely blown out by the San Francisco 49ers. And then follows that up getting blown out by the Dallas Cowboys. And that's when they make the desperate move. But the San Francisco 49ers have the number 2 offense in the entire NFL. The Dallas Cowboys have the number 5 offense in the entire NFL in terms of yards. Cowboys are number 1 in points. 49ers are number 3 in points. So as much as you didn't like to see the Eagles get dominated by those two teams, those were two offenses that have been doing that to pretty much everybody. So they make the change to Patricia. And at the time when they made the change, I actually did a tweet that said, guys, don't get too excited about Matt Patricia over the next few games because the offenses they're going up against are all in the bottom of the NFL. So I thought for sure we were going to see Matt Patricia's defense play really well the last 4 weeks of the season because the offenses they were going up against weren't very good. So I even said, fans, calm down, because I thought all the Eagles fans were going to be, oh, Matt Patricia's the next Jim Johnson. But we were wrong. Because when they moved from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia, things got even worse somehow. If that was even possible, you were already in the bottom of the NFL in almost every single defensive category. And then you were going up against, let's just look at this, okay? The Seattle Seahawks were the number 21 ranked offense in the NFL. You let their backup quarterback, Drew Lock, go 92 yards in less than 2 minutes to win that football game. Okay. Maybe it was just because it was Matt Patricia's first game as the defensive coordinator, and it was going to take some time for everybody to get used to his terminology and his play calling. And maybe now we'll see the stamp of his defense. So then they go the following week against the New York Giants. And the New York Giants also had a really bad offense. And they had started Tommy Cutlets, who, let's be honest, guys, should not be a starter in the NFL. And the best thing that happened to the Philadelphia Eagles was that the New York Giants started Tommy Cutlets in the first half of that football game. Because they came out to a 20-3 lead in that game. Then the Giants wised up and said, hey, Tommy Cutlets doesn't give us a chance to win. And they put out Tyrod Taylor in the second half, and they outscored the Philadelphia Eagles 22-13 in the second half. Some of that was turnovers, common theme we've seen this year. But it was also, you saw in the first half of that Giants game, the first one, the Eagles were able to get off the field on third down, something they haven't done all year. They held Tommy DeVito and the Giants to 1 of 8. But in the second half, Tyrod Taylor converted 50% of his third down conversions. So you let a team as bad as the New York Giants, the 29th ranked offense, almost beat you in week 16. Okay, well, maybe it's only a 2-game sample size with Matt Patricia. Now we're going up against the Arizona Cardinals. And the Arizona Cardinals, another bad offense. And that game is in Philadelphia. And if the Eagles win this football game, they're in the driver's seat to win the NFC East. There's no way the Arizona Cardinals are going to come in here and beat the Philadelphia Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field with the NFC East right in front of the Eagles, with Jonathan Gannon, the hated Jonathan Gannon, coming back to town. Matt Patricia's got this one now. They let the Arizona Cardinals put up 450 yards of offense, over 200 yards rushing. And then we thought, okay, well, let's get things right the last game of the year. The Giants' offense is terrible. Let's get things right the last game of the year. They let Drew Lock go 92 yards. They let Tyrod Taylor have a good second half. They let the Arizona Cardinals go for 450. But this is the game we're going to get things right. It's week 18. Let's get that mojo right, headed into the playoffs. Giants are the 29th ranked offense. Let's dominate this game on the defensive side of the football. They gave up 415 yards yesterday to the New York Giants. 272 yards in the first half. 24 points in the first half. And really, outside of a deflection, probably would have been 31-0, but for that deflected pass that Reed Blankenship intercepted in the end zone. The Giants had 5 red zone opportunities in the first half. The Eagles had 0. Giants had 14 first downs in the first half. Eagles had 5. This defense since Matt Patricia has taken it over has been even worse than it was when Sean Desai was your signal caller. And the worst part for me about this defense is that at least you had one thing you could do right in the beginning of the year, and that was stop the run. We knew this Eagles defense stunk against the pass. We knew they couldn't get off the field on third down. We knew they couldn't stop anybody in the red zone. We knew they couldn't get pressure on the quarterback anywhere near the way they did it last season. But the one thing this team could do was they could stop the run. Number one rushing defense in the entire NFL the first 7 weeks of the year. Nobody runs on this defense. Nobody runs on this defensive line. The last 8 games of the year, after being number one in the NFL for the first 9, only letting one team rush for over 100 yards in the first 9 games, and that was an overtime game against the Washington Commanders. The Philadelphia Eagles have now let all 8 of their opponents, Giants twice, rush for over 100 yards. Every single game in the last 8 games, the opponent has rushed for over 100 yards. So now, not only does your defense stink against the pass, and not only does your defense stink on third down, not only does your defense stink in the red zone, now your defense stinks against the run too. You can't do anything. And as excited as we all were for Matt Patricia to take over this defense, who loves seeing Hassan Reddick in coverage? Your best pass rusher, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Great idea. Let's keep dropping him into coverage. And you saw it last week against Arizona, him in coverage more than he's ever been. And I told you guys, go back and watch the interview of Hassan Reddick last week. When they asked him about dropping back in coverage, he laughed and then said he's going to do whatever the coaches ask him to do. And then what happens? The first play of the game against the Giants yesterday, the first 2 plays of the game, they drop Hassan Reddick in coverage. What the hell are you guys doing? We know how bad the coaching is on offense. We talked about it. And now you're seeing some ridiculous decisions on defense. And not only are they dropping Hassan Reddick in coverage, they're dropping Nolan Smith in coverage. This is a bad football team. It's a bad coached football team. And these players just aren't executing. The tackling is horrendous on defense. And if you guys follow the JAKIB Sports game day shows, a few weeks back on the postgame show that we do, me, Seth Joyner, Mikey Miss, Mark Farzetta, after the San Francisco 49ers game, where this team looked like they had zero desire to tackle, Seth Joyner said, tackling is an attitude. This team looks like they have zero attitude. You remember the 2017 Super Bowl team? That team had swagger. Even last year's team, we're seeing now that it's because they're a bunch of front runners and they were just winning last year. But let me ask you guys a question if you're here in the chat. First half, Jalen Hurts lines up for the brotherly shove. Bobby Okereke on the New York Giants decides he's going to try to leap over the pile, do a Troy Polamalu, and leap over the pile to try to stop Jalen Hurts. He does it early, and he hits your quarterback in the head. Not a single person reacted. Not a single person on that Philadelphia Eagles offense reacted to the New York Giants linebacker flying over the top and taking a headshot at your quarterback and leader. That was all I needed to see to know that this team has checked out. that they lack attitude and swagger and commitment to one another. One of their offensive linemen should have had to been pulled off of Bobby Okereke. Even if you're not, I'm not saying throw punches or do anything. You get in his face. You show that you're not going to let anybody do that to your quarterback. I thought that was embarrassing. And that one play told me everything I needed to know about your 2023 Philadelphia Eagles. You know I hate being negative, guys. If you follow me, I bleed green just like the rest of you do. I want to see this team win a damn Super Bowl. And I said it last night on the postgame show. Driving back from Atlantic City yesterday, what was getting me so upset and so sad is that last year, Super Bowl 57, the Eagles had that game. Up by 10. We thought we had that game. And after that holding call to James Bradbury, and after the Eagles lose that devastating Super Bowl, I was upset. But what I kept coming back to that was making me feel a little bit better was that this team will get back. This team has a great young franchise quarterback. This team has a great young head coach who's built a strong culture on this football team. And the reason I'm so sad and depressed as I sit here today is because as I look forward to the future, when will this team be Super Bowl contenders again? Because things are not looking anywhere near as promising as they were, even in light of the Super Bowl loss last year. Even though we were all hurting after Super Bowl 57, every single one of us looked at this team and its quarterback and its coaching staff and said, it's okay because they're going to get back. Maybe not next year. It's hard to get back the year after you lose, but they'll get back soon. And now you take a step back and you look at this football team. A lot of people have questions about Jalen Hurts. A lot of us now have questions about Nick Sirianni. We obviously all have questions about the coordinators, Brian Johnson, Matt Patricia, Sean Desai. And I also think we got a real question about the leadership of this team going forward. Because the guys who are supposed to be your leaders probably won't even be back next year. I cannot imagine Jason Kelce wanting to come back to this team. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. You're going to lose some veteran leaders. So now I have some real reservations about calling this team even a Super Bowl contender next season. And you look at this defense, and we've talked about it. The lack of personnel on defense is really alarming. And even going forward next year, all of these guys that we thought were going to be really good this season, Jordan Davis being one of them. When you look at that defense, let's just take a step back and look at the personnel on that defense. Who are your linebackers next year? We still don't know if Nakobe Dean can play. Zach Cunningham won't be back. Shaq Leonard won't be back. Nick Morrow won't be back. So who's our linebackers next year? Look at safety. Do you have faith that Kevin Byard is the answer back there? Sidney Brown now, promising, tears his ACL. What's that recovery like? Our corners, we got to hope Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks turn out to be really good corners, because you think James Bradbury is going to get better next year, another year older? Do you think Darius Slay is going to be better next year, another year older? And then you look at that defensive line. You have Hassan Reddick, who's probably going to want a new contract. He's going to be in the final year of his 3-year deal he signed. Probably going to want a new contract. Is he coming back? What does Josh Sweat have left? You've seen him hit a wall this year. Is Nolan Smith worthy of a first-round draft pick? Outside of those three guys, who's on your edge? Who can rush the quarterback? You look at the defensive line. Okay, Jalen Carter, excited about him. You probably don't have Fletcher Cox. Is Jordan Davis worthy of the first-round pick you took last year with him? There's just a lot of question marks now on this team, and especially on that defense, that has me concerned, not only for this week against Tampa, but when is this team going to be the Super Bowl contenders that we were all hoping they would be for years to come after losing that Super Bowl last year? And for me, it's bringing back all the sadness I had after Super Bowl 57 ended. Because now I just don't know when this team's getting back. But guys, today is Black Monday. Obviously, the Eagles are not moving on from Nick Sirianni today. There's still one more game. But I'm starting to think it's possible. But last week on the show, I gave you a list of 7 teams that I thought could move on from their coaches on Black Monday. One of them was the Washington Commanders. Shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. They fired Ron Rivera this morning. Not a surprise. And they make an interesting move, Josh Harris. So they hire Rick Spielman, the old general manager from the Minnesota Vikings. And they also bring in NBA executive Bob Myers, who helped build all those Golden State Warriors teams. They bring him in to their leadership with the Commanders. So an interesting move by Josh Harris. Do they bring on Bill Belichick? Well, he was another coach I thought could be on his way out. We will see. It's now being reported he's willing to give up control of personnel. Does that help him keep his job in New England? I don't know. But I said I thought Washington would make a move. They have. I thought Atlanta would make a move, and they have. They have fired Arthur Smith. That doesn't come as a surprise to me. In 3 years, I think he's 21-30 as a head coach. Not a great record. The other team that I thought could make a move today, and I don't think it's going to happen after yesterday's performance, but I thought Dennis Allen would have been on his way out in New Orleans. I don't think this guy is a good coach at all. He's 23-46, something like that, as a head coach. Hasn't had any success in New Orleans. But they dominated the Atlanta Falcons yesterday. There were some reports even before the game that he was probably safe. I'd move on from him, but it looks like the Saints may keep him. We already know Carolina's moved on from their coach. The Los Angeles Chargers have moved on from their coach earlier in the year. The big question is, does Antonio Pierce get named the head coach in Las Vegas? I think he should. I think he's done a great job as an interim coach there. I think the players want him, but we'll see. But the other names to look out for today, obviously, is Bill Belichick. That's the big one. Does the New England Patriots organization part ways with Belichick? I don't think if they do that you will hear he got fired. You'll probably hear it's a mutual decision. And I already see people. They're already hitting me up on Instagram. The Eagles should bring in Bill Belichick. I wouldn't do it. As great as Belichick has been throughout his career, I'm not bringing him in as a head coach. He's going to be 72 years old when the season starts next year. 72. And he has had 0 success since Tom Brady left him. I'm not saying all of the success that they had was because of Tom Brady, but the Patriot way worked so well because they had Tom Brady not only as their quarterback, but as their leader. One of the best leaders we have ever seen in the NFL. Whether you like Tom Brady or not, the reason that his teams were so successful wasn't only because Tom Brady was a great quarterback. It was because of his leadership ability and how much he demanded from his teammates, and he gave just as much as he demanded. That worked. It was the perfect relationship with Tom Brady and the Patriot way under Bill Belichick. Can that be duplicated somewhere else? Does the Patriot way even still work in today's NFL? So if I'm an NFL owner, I'm not bringing in Bill Belichick if the Patriots and him part ways. But there's some reports that Josh Harris and the Commanders would be interested. So there's a chance Bill Belichick could be in the NFC East next year. We will see. The other coach that I would have considered being on the hot seat, but they've already announced is safe, is Matt Eberflus from Chicago. I would have moved on from him, but they announced that he is safe. And I see somebody in the chat talking about Mike Vrabel, Mr. Rudy Poo. Any word on him? I thought he was going to be safe. Have they announced whether or not he's out in Tennessee? I think he's coming back. That's what I would think. Especially after that performance where they had no reason to play and beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I see Philly 007 talking about, did Washington bring in Bob Myers? They did. They haven't announced what role. He'll be probably vice president or president of football operations, something along those lines. But an interesting move by the Washington Commanders to bring in a guy who obviously had a ton of success in the NBA. He'll probably help them in their coaching search is what I would think. So, guys, Philly Sports Power Hour flies by. So if you want more Eagles talk, you could check me out tonight on the Legal Hands to the Face show at 6:30. Got a great guest tonight. My man, Johnny Marks, will be joining the Legal Hands to the Face show tonight. You may miss hearing Johnny. He's not on the radio anymore, but I'm sure he's got a lot to say about this Philadelphia Eagles team. So you could see me and Johnny Marks tonight on the Legal Hands to the Face show live at 6:30. We will be 6:30 to 8 o'clock. You could check it out right here on YouTube. If you guys are on TikTok, we won't be on TikTok tonight with Johnny Marks. So make sure you're following. Check out my link tree in my profile. Make sure you're following so you can catch the show of me and Johnny Marks tonight, talking all things Philadelphia Eagles. And I will also start to look ahead to the matchup against the Tampa Bay Bucks. I know it's hard, but this Eagles team does have a playoff game coming up. So we'll take a look at that matchup. But guys, like we end every single Philly Sports Power Hour with a little Today in Sports History. If you guys follow the show, you know I'm a golfer. Not very good, but I love to golf. Picked it up a few years ago. Try to play as much golf as possible. Now that I'm too old to play football and ice hockey anymore, I like to try to golf. So today in sports history is golf related. On January 8th, 1962, 21-year-old future Hall of Fame golfer Jack Nicklaus made his professional appearance. He tied for 50th in the Los Angeles Open. So on January 8th, 1962, Jack Nicklaus' first professional appearance ever. And we know he went on to do some amazing things as a golfer. Even guys who don't like golf or girls who don't like golf know who Jack Nicklaus is. But guys, I appreciate all of you. Go ahead, hit that like button for me. We didn't talk anything about the Flyers or the Sixers today. We usually get into that on the Philly Sports Power Hour. I apologize. We just went on our Eagles rant. But the Flyers get back in the winning column on Saturday against the Calgary Flames. Big win. Honoring Ed Snyder that day. Feisty game. Travis Konechny scores another shorthanded goal. Best penalty kill in the NHL right there with the Philadelphia Flyers. Sixers dropped 2 straight, one with Embiid, one without him. Not a great game against the Knicks, unfortunately, but he kept his streak going. But we'll talk more Sixers and Flyers the rest of the week. But make sure you are following along tonight, 6:30, the Legal Hands to the Face show. Going to be joined by my man, Johnny Marks. Hit that like button, hit that share button, guys. I appreciate all of you. And as always, go Birds.
Go for the polls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.